Today on Navigating Success, I'm joined by Ian Baltutis, former 3-term mayor of Burlington, North Carolina, entrepreneur and community leader. Ian helped launch Burlington Beer Works, is the owner of Persnickety Books, and is also the author of 4 Pairs of Shoes. He's currently running for Burlington City Council, and we will be talking about leadership, small business, and how community and entrepreneurship can work hand in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, Ian Baltutis. Ian, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Becca. I appreciate it.
I want to first get started with your step into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Well, if you ask my parents, that was a Kool-Aid stand in front of my house, like so many kids. They remember a fight between my neighbor and I when we were running the Kool-Aid stand, where I was arguing of how we should split the profits. And I argued that we needed to take costs of the cups and the Kool-Aid and the sugar out first and then split that. And she wanted to just split the money. So you could say my entrepreneurship journey started then.
Wow.
But I had a lawn mowing business, but it really started when I came to Elon University and studied entrepreneurship at the Corey Business Center there, or Martha Love Business Center. And there I met my business partner, RJ Yazwick, and he had a product idea for pads to go under washing machines and absorb vibration. And I thought that was a great project that could go well beyond the classroom. So I was excited to join him, and we took that project and actually built a business plan around it. And our senior year at Elon, we went to a business plan competition in Evansville, Indiana, and pitched it. We had a 7-8 minute presentation, which I thought was stressful, and now we have pitches that are 3 minutes or 1 minute. But we won the grand prize at that competition, got $10,000, which was our seed money to start the company. And we were able to start selling those pads from our dorm rooms at Elon, shipping them from our campus box.
Wow, that's wild. So from there, skip ahead, not sure how many years, to you are now drawn into public service. Tell me about that transition and what first drew you that direction.
It was beer and an entrepreneurial journey as well. So I had a homebrew club on my back patio, and every other weekend we'd brew a batch of beer and invite folks over to help us drink it and clean our brewing equipment. And of course the conversation came up that we need a brewery in town. We didn't have a brewery in really Alamance County or downtown. And so we started pushing ideas around and trying to make something work, and it just didn't pencil. And so I put that idea on the shelf back in 2011, and then 2013 came around, and I was at a downtown planning session, and I ran into Eric Henry, who's another local entrepreneur, amazing guy. And we ended up in some breakout group talking about beer and wine in downtown, and I said, I want to make a brewery, and he said, well, what if we did it as a co-op? Because he'd just seen this cooperative brewery in Austin, Texas. And so we brought those ideas together, started recruiting a board of directors, and Burlington Beer Works was born as the cooperative brewery and restaurant model. And in that process, I started engaging with our city council and creating that vision for revitalizing downtown. And that's where I realized that there was a need for new leadership in our city government and for that vision of how we shape the future of Burlington. And that's what somewhat reluctantly drew me into local government and politics. I didn't think that would be in my future, and now it's well ingrained. It's become part of my entrepreneurial journey.
So what was the biggest surprise for you transitioning from just an ordinary entrepreneur citizen to being mayor of Burlington?
I guess the biggest surprise was probably that public service as a elected mayor or council member is really kind of a blank slate, and you get to make it what you want it to be. And because of my kind of entrepreneurial pathway, where I created this very kind of loose, fluid exploration and journey of kind of finding ideas and exploring them, I took the same approach to local government. We said, what do we really want to achieve in our community? And then what are some creative ways that we can do it? Not just thinking about it as it's got to go through the normal channels of bureaucracy in order to achieve these things. Let's take a broader lens and say, who are the players that need to be at the table? What are the tools in the toolbox? What's public-private partnership look like? And let's get really creative on kind of bringing new ideas into the fold and shaping our community. It was a lot of fun. It's still a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Since you enjoyed it so much, you're going again, I see. During your time as mayor, what initiatives that you spearheaded most impacted local businesses?
I think working on downtown was probably the biggest one. We think about our downtowns as the beating heart of our community, and if they're not beating, then the rest of the community's not thriving. And we were seeing that in Burlington. And a lot of the work that we did with Burlington Beer Works was really about bringing customers to the center of the city. And the goal was always to create a spillover effect that would allow other folks to create a vision for vacant buildings or underutilized spaces and then bring their business and their idea to those. And we've seen that ripple outwards with brand new businesses popping up. Even when things fail or stumble, we see them retool themselves. We see new businesses take advantage of renovated spaces. And that, I think, is what's building the longest legacy and really a laboratory for new businesses to pop up and try things in downtown. Yeah.
So speaking about downtown and how you're trying to bring things there, how do you approach balancing the needs of the community against the needs of a business itself?
It's a great question. And I don't see there being a whole lot of struggle there when we align our priorities. And when we talk about, like, what do we want to see happen in community? Because so often, if we just kind of let things happen to us, that's where we run into the struggles. But when we plan for it, when we engage people in the process, when we welcome their views to the table, then things tend to line up and we realize that we're all kind of working towards the same thing. People want to see vibrancy, they want to see new businesses open, they want to have new amenities in their neighborhood, and helping them connect the dots of how do we achieve this. Some of it's going to take development. Those trees are going to get cut down. That vacant lot is going to be revitalized or developed. There's going to be more traffic. But what are the benefits? And what do you want to see happen? Do you want that to be a franchise business, or do you want it to be something that's locally owned from a local business owner? And then weaving that into the tools that we use to make those things happen. We're a growing community, but we're also a community that struggled. And so in a lot of cases, the development that we see rekindles a level of excitement for people, especially if they've been a long-term resident of Burlington. They may have fond memories of when downtown was happening or when a neighborhood business district was the place to go. And so to see that vacant, to see those businesses that they have such treasured memories sit dark is really hard. And so to see new light, new energy come back to that brings us challenges, but also brings that renewed hope and optimism.
I've been privileged to hear many of those stories of what it used to be in the 40s and 50s, I think, of some of those downtown businesses that were, and some of them that stuck around, amazingly so.
For a long time,
Can you tell me a story where you had to make a trade-off between your long-term vision and short-term pressures? I'm sure you have some of those.
There's a lot of them. A great one would be with our bookstore, Persnickety Books. We have been around for 8 years. I got involved with the business in 2019. And we've been a downtown resident for most of that history. But this past winter, we had to make a really hard decision. We were struggling to come to an agreement with our landlord on what was affordable for rent, and we couldn't resolve that. So we had to make the very challenging decision to move out of downtown. And something that's been near and dear to my heart, and having an independent bookstore and community gathering place in downtown, I think, was so critical. But it was a matter of, do we keep the lights on, do we keep it open, or do we find another, or do we just close it? And the only way to keep it open was to move 6 blocks out of downtown. But in the same way, we found a neighborhood business district on East Davis Street in the historic district there that was filled with businesses that had been shuttered or windows darkened. And we were able to work with the property owners over there to find a good spot and a fit for the bookstore. And now we're seeing that life and that new energy come back to the community. We're seeing neighbors come out and embrace the business energy and ask how they can get involved and how we can start more things over there. So we had to trade off that connection with downtown, but we were able to carry some of the momentum that we created over all those years into kind of reshaping that vision for the years coming forward.
A pivot.
Yeah.
That's one thing
a classic pivot.
I have had to learn, I think, is the most important thing I've learned as an adult, is no matter what you have planned, be ready to pivot and take on new challenges and tackle things different ways and different perspectives.
Yeah. And I would add, always look at what you've gained or achieved along the way, because usually a failure, usually a need to pivot is not a loss of everything.
True.
And so there's always something that you've gained there. And I think about politics has been a struggle for my entrepreneurial mind to wrap around. Because you think about politics and running for office, and you're working really, really hard until Election Day. And then the polls close at 7:30, and there's no more work to do. And you just watch the numbers come in. But it also means, like, if you lose, what have you achieved? Because, and I've lost as many elections as I've won, and they're hard. But looking back on it, we make amazing connections in the community. We meet new leaders. We empower new folks to step up. I've seen candidates arise from conversations that I've had at a doorstep. They show up next year as a volunteer, and the year after that, they run for city council. And like, things grow out of these little impacts that we have, whether it's a business or a campaign. And so there's always something there. And the pivot process is really looking at what assets have you gained, what things have you created, and then how do you carry that forward into the new endeavor.
So along those lines, what have you learned from civic leadership that you've been able to incorporate into business?
It's a great question. And I think I've seen so much benefit from civic engagement in my civic leadership, and that's like how we create community around a business. So my first company, Vibration Solution, was around a polymer, which is a very nuanced engineering, jargon-filled process of like weight loading and vibration isolation. And we spend a lot of time working directly with a small engineering community who have very specific requirements. And many of my other businesses are more focused on kind of creating a community and a following of people who can kind of find interesting ways to engage with a company, whether it's a small business, retail, the bookstore, downtown. And thinking about how I engage folks door to door in my local government work has taught me kind of how to meet more customers where they're at, and then how to help them like weave into our story and our narrative. And now I'm coming full circle in some kind of content generation with the Polymer Company to kind of help build more of a DIY community around using that material. So it's all been this like, how do we bring more people into the conversation? And then, this is like a nuance in government all the time, which is government's a giant bureaucracy that's really hard to comprehend even for the folks in it. And so if you're outside the system, it seems really intimidating. And so how do you empower people with enough knowledge to be comfortable to start to engage? Whether it's advocating for something in their neighborhood, whether it's helping to plan a park, whether it's like giving good feedback on a new development, how do you empower them with enough information to make a solid and real argument to help them move their case forward? And the same is true about helping somebody learn how to use our polymer if they're struggling with something like their neighbor's air conditioning unit's really loud and they're trying to fall asleep at night. How can they figure out an isolation solution that helps them sleep better? And so these things are coming together in amazing ways, and it all folds into one wonderful journey.
That those weave in ways that I never would have imagined. When you had faced, while you were mayor, opposition on things or tough decisions, what strategies helped you move forward without losing trust?
Without losing trust is the key there.
Right.
Yep. And I think the best strategy that I learned was to be humble, and not everything needs to be a personal victory. So if there's something that we need to achieve, I may not be the right person to champion it, especially in the political world where there may be a better messenger. And so who can be the best messenger? Who can be the best advocate? And then how do I help rally support behind them and empower them to be that advocate and champion? And that's paid dividends and in so many ways.
I believe that. A lot of what people are taught are the importance of collaboration and listening to others. Can you tell me what kind of role that may have played during tense situations that you needed to diffuse?
I think that ability to collaborate and listen to others was always a little easier for me because I spent so much time listening to our community members. Because the views that I carry with me are rarely my own, at least 100% my own. They're often built as a compilation, as a collage of many different views and conversations that I've had and experienced throughout my work, professional and political and just general life. And so being able to draw back on those individual narratives, on stories from people, specific people, and be able to share that forward has allowed me to walk into some very challenging situations and diffuse them. Because instead of arguing about kind of grand facts, figures, or concepts, it's about the lived experience that people are having right now, right down to an individual experiencing like at their home or in their front porch. And it's hard to say, no, that's not real.
Right.
When these are things that we could all see ourselves struggling with, and we probably have. And so when we ground it in something so concrete and so kind of emotionally grounded, where we can find that common connection, then it makes it a lot easier to collaborate.
Going back a little bit, we talked a little bit about Persnickety. When you purchased Persnickety, what was the motivation behind that idea and that decision? What were you thinking at the time?
There were a lot of interesting things going on. So I had met Shauna and Herb Gentert, who founded Persnickety. I met them when I was mayor and when they moved the bookstore downtown. I came by and said, hi, thanks so much for opening your business. And I continued to pop in regularly, one, because I read a lot, and two, because I wanted to support them. And one day they mentioned that they needed to move back to Oregon, where they're from, and that they wanted to put the business up for sale. So I said, well, let's find you a buyer so this can stay in downtown. And for months, we shopped the business around, tried to find somebody interested in maintaining a bookstore, and it came down to the last week. And they were like, we're packing up. We got to leave in like 7 days. We don't have anyone to buy the bookstore. And I remember waking up one morning and being like, shoot, I'm going to be the one who buys the bookstore, aren't I? And so I asked them, like, all right, it's crunch time. Like, let's make this work. And I ended up, for $9,500,
Wow.
I bought the assets of the bookstore, the name, the shelves, all the books, and basically, like, so they didn't have to move them.
Wow.
And assumed their lease. And said, let's try to figure this out. And it's been an interesting adventure ever since then. I'm delighted that Shauna and Herb have moved back to Burlington. They love the community so much that they're back. And Shauna's engaged in the bookstore again. So without her vision that both helped found the bookstore and her vision guiding the store these days, we would not be where we're at.
Taking on a retail location versus selling a polymer are two very different things, along with civil leadership. What has been your steepest learning curve in these transitions that you've been making?
Retail business has definitely been the steepest learning curve. Just the monumental challenge of getting enough customers in the door and driving enough revenue to keep the lights on has, and I know you've experienced this too, it is an unforgiving struggle. And no matter how much folks love your business, like, making the numbers work in the background is always really hard, in a way that running a manufacturing company where your customers can be all around the world seems easy compared to keeping a local independent bookstore with one location and a handful of staff open.
Yes.
And I did not anticipate it would be that much of a struggle.
Yes. The marketing aspect is always a surprise with that, I think. People do not realize it's it's very much a mentality of if you build it, they will come. And a lot of small business owners, they build it and then they are shocked and don't know what direction to go at that point.
Yeah. And I think I underestimated how long it was going to take to build that following. Even though I was buying an existing business, like to get enough people to even know we existed, there's still folks today that are like, we have a bookstore? I'm like, we've been around for 8 years. Like building that customer awareness, even in a small community like we are, is an uphill challenge.
Yes. So Persnickety is known for giving books and people a second chance. What impact has your hiring model with what you do? First tell us a little bit more about that, and then explain how that hiring model, what effect has it had on the team and the community? Yeah,
so that's something I can credit to Eric Henry, who's been a mentor of mine since my days at Elon. And Eric's got a triple bottom line business. And what I learned from him was this idea of like what a business could be for the community beyond just the retail or the revenue, and beyond the employment that it creates. But really, what is the community connection and what's the long-term good that it's creating? And so when we started tackling Persnickety, we said, well, we're a used bookstore. So what are we doing? We're trying to connect books with their next home, their next opportunity. And at the time, I was working closely with Phil Bowers in Sustainable Elements, and he had this program called Reserve One. And the idea was he's working with adults who have come out of incarceration. That one of the biggest struggles is landing on their feet, getting employment, being able to pay their bills, being able to get into stable housing. And employment is the number one thing that they need to find. And so he was looking for folks who would just create one job. In your entire company, create one job, reserve that job for someone who's formerly incarcerated, and use it as a stepping stone. Because he was so confident that these folks could prove themselves. He's like, just give one of them a chance. And what he was seeing time and time again was folks would create more and more and more positions because these folks wanted to work.
Right.
And with the support that Sustainable Elements and Phil were putting behind them, they were ready, they were prepared, and they could tackle some of the challenges that they'd hit elsewhere in life while working for that employer. And so we worked with Phil and we tried to create some opportunities there. It never worked out in quite the way we wanted to, but they have a moving group at Sustainable Elements we work closely with because books are heavy. We move a lot of them on a regular basis, and his moving crew has been amazingly helpful. We've worked with Benevolence Farm, who's very similar to Sustainable Elements. Sustainable works with men coming out of incarceration. Benevolence Farm works with women. We've supported them in a number of ways, including they have a whole line of health and beauty products that they create using the products of their farm, and Persnickety has been a retail outlet for those. And then we've worked with books to prison programs, which it's really hard to get books into prisons, and a lot of programs, a lot of nonprofits that want to do it are forced, they need a bookstore to actually be the mailing address where the book comes from. And so we worked with Saxpaw Prison Books, which works with a lot of federal prisons in Georgia and South Carolina. And so we were their bookstore that they got to ship from. And we opened up all of our shelves, so when they got a request for a certain fiction author or a photography book or whatever, they could just go to the shelf, they could grab a used book that met that person's needs, wrap it up, and send it. And so we've looked at how do we support folks who have been incarcerated and are looking for that second chance. In the same way we're connecting the books with a new home, we're connecting these individuals with a new opportunity.
Amazing. I didn't realize it was a struggle to get books into prisons.
There's a lot of bias and struggle against it. So.
Is it difficult for you to balance your mission with your margins? Because you do have this additional for the greater good that you want your business to do. Is it difficult to balance that with profit? Sometimes.
And even my manufacturing company, we work closely with a group here in North Carolina called OE Enterprises, and they provide employment for adults with disabilities. And so they've been doing our third-party logistics and our repacking for, almost 15 years now.
Okay.
So when the business outgrew my garage and I needed a bigger warehouse space and I couldn't repack everything myself or even pay my friends with beer and pizza enough
Yeah, that only goes so far.
It only goes so far. When you start needing it like 5 days a week, they have other things they want to do.
Indeed.
When it outgrew my garage, I started working with OE Enterprises, and we've grown with them over the years, and we've helped them expand their capabilities to match our growing needs. And that's been a wonderful partnership. So, like, building that into your business mission, which, we're a fairly virtual manufacturing company. Our production is up in Ohio. We contract that out, and then our warehouse is contracted out in Burlington. So being so virtual, I still wanted to make sure we were having a concrete impact in the local community, and partnering with OE was a great way to do that. That's been easier to justify financially than necessarily the bookstore's work. But I think if we were just a bookstore, if we didn't have that community connection, what differentiates us from Barnes & Noble? And so in a world where it's really hard to be an independent bookstore, it's really that much more important to have a brand and to be true to it that people can really identify with. And a big source of our books is donations and trade-ins. And so folks see the work we're doing, they see the good from that, and that helps them want to engage and want to support us through bringing their books to us.
True. Switching gears a little bit again towards maybe a mentorship mindset. You've seen a lot of things going on with a lot of businesses in Burlington and other places. What do you see as the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make, especially starting out?
The biggest mistake that entrepreneurs make, I think you underestimate everything. So, like we talked about, underestimating building a customer base and how hard that's going to be. So just how hard it's going to be to actually carve out your niche, carve out your customer awareness, and establish yourself. And I've fallen prey to that many times. We'll launch a new product in a different marketplace, and I'll think, great, we've got so much experience, we've got the infrastructure behind it. Like, people will discover us quickly, and it's so hard these days. If you think it's easier for other people, it's not. Everybody's pouring tons of time into it, and either you're spending a lot of money or you're just spending a lot of time on it.
Or both.
Or both. And you've got to stay fresh and current on it because someone else is always trying to carve out some of that segment as well.
Right. Yeah. One more shift of gears.
Sure.
You are running for City Council for Burlington this term. What do you see as your projection for how you can help small businesses in that role?
I think in the same way that we focused on downtown before, we need to focus more broadly on supporting entrepreneurs kind of at all stages. So Burlington used to be a very affordable community to start a business. It's still quite affordable compared to Charlotte, Raleigh, some of the larger metro areas, but we've seen rents double. So where you used to have a longer runway with your startup funding to kind of try things out and figure it out, you don't anymore. And so there's more that we need to do to help create spaces for people to try, to help create mentors and connections for them to have a community around them, because it can be lonely when you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I don't know if you've experienced that, but you spend so much time head down trying to make it work that you can forget that there are other people around you who are also head down, struggling. And some communities have a more vibrant entrepreneurial community where folks do find each other. I think Burlington and Alamance are still struggling with that. So creating spaces for entrepreneurs to convene, making sure that we have physical spaces from the launch of their businesses, and then making sure the city is there to creatively support them, not just with boilerplate grants, but really to meet what are their needs. Do they have a unique zoning issue? Do they have a unique mechanical issue of how their building needs to connect or be built? Really understand, like, what are the needs of these entrepreneurs? And don't let them get lost in the bureaucracy. Because when you're a 1, 2, 3 person show, you don't have time to figure out bureaucracy or navigate local government. You just need a number to call and someone who's willing to make sure that you get to the right door, the right person to talk to.
If you are elected to City Council, what 1 to 2 changes are you most likely to try to implement to tangibly support local businesses, like specific?
Specific?
Do you have any?
Yeah. So number one, this is very jargony in the weeds. I talk a lot about capital improvement plans. That is a 10-year capital funding plan. The city of Burlington does not currently have one. And that's really an investment portfolio of what the city's going to put significant money towards to shape the future of the community. Mm-hmm. And I think if there's one thing the local government does that supports small business and business in general the best, it's to create plans and to make them very clear and then stick to them. Because if we don't know where we're going and we don't tell anyone where we're going, how are they supposed to come along with us? But when we make concrete plans and we clearly communicate them with the rest of the world, and then we stick to them, and we show incrementally, here's what we're doing this year, here's what we're going to do next year, here's what we're going to do the year after that, it creates the space for the private sector, for entrepreneurs, to find a need, to see where we're headed, and to join in on that plan. And having a capital improvement plan, actually working that, actually making those incremental investments in the things that we need to because we're a growing community, will open the spaces for other people to invest in our community, either physical places or emerging needs.
We talked a little bit earlier about books. You have written a book.
I have. It's very short, but I have.
And the title is
4 Pairs of Shoes.
4 Pairs of Shoes. I was thinking 5 pairs of shoes the other day. 4 Pairs of Shoes. Can you tell me a small little snippet about what that is about?
I can, and it's funny because I was knocking doors this afternoon and walking neighborhoods, chatting with folks, and I was thinking about I need to write a follow-up to this book. And I'm like, how many pairs of shoes have I worn through since then? Because the title 4 Pairs of Shoes comes from that I wore through 4 pairs of shoes getting elected the first time.
Wow.
I started running in 2013. I lost my first campaign. I lost a race in 2014, and then I finally won in 2015. And over that time, I knocked over 20,000 doors in our community, walked just about every block, every street in the city, and had amazing conversations. And so in the process of wearing out those shoes, I also learned lots of stories from the city. And that book is a brief retelling of some of my favorite stories that I think best illustrated where Burlington was, what we were struggling with, and what we wanted to become.
Other than 4 Pairs of Shoes, what is the #1 book that you think everyone should read?
Oh. I'm blanking on what I always recommend folks. It's just been a long day.
Do you have a specific entrepreneurship
book? Why am I just blanking? I love reading so much. I'm just like...
You've read too many books. They're all floating around.
I have read so many books. I'm trying to think of all the books that we keep in the bookstore that are like the ones Ian recommends. So...
We can plug a list into the podcast.
Gosh. I mean, there's one that we used when I was at launch. And it actually came to me through Alex Joyner, who was one of our employees there. And it's called The Mom Test.
The Mom Test.
The Mom Test. It's also a quick read. And the idea is that if you're starting a business and you tell your mom about it, she's going to say it's the best thing in the world, you're going to succeed, you're amazing. And if you don't find the right customer and ask the right questions, you're going to head down the wrong pathway. And there's some great examples in the books about how to best frame your questions to get good information that's meaningful from your customers and your mom.
And your mom.
That will actually help you shape your business so you're not headed down some garden path and so you don't make as many mistakes.
The Mom Test.
The Mom Test.
Okay.
So we keep a stack of them at the bookstore, and I love giving that one out.
That is a new one to me. Yeah. So I always end my interviews with this specific question. John Maxwell. I was privileged to hear him speak, and he said his favorite thing to do when he is at a dinner with a bunch of successful people is to go around the table and ask them, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given? And I have taken that to heart. So Ian, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
The best piece of advice I've ever been given. Gosh. I don't know if you can fully count this as being given, but there's a quote that I love, and it's from Joan Didion. And it says, a place belongs forever to whoever loves it hardest enough to shape, render it, and remake it in their own image. And I've paraphrased a bit of that. But what I love about that is that the things we see around us don't have to forever be the way they are. And this idea that when we love things, we love them enough to change them. And I think that's the entrepreneurial journey, that we can reshape these things. We have permission to reshape these things. And along the way, we're going to inspire other folks to enjoy like what we're creating.
I love it. That is amazing. Now it is your turn. You have completed the interview with me. Where would you like to send all of our viewers and listeners to find out more about you and what you're up to?
You're always welcome to check out my numerous online personalities. So The Vibration Solution and Isolate It Manufacturing are my companies. With the polymer realm, you can check out our many different products there. That's been a wonderful journey of coming up with consumer products as well as wearing components in Tesla cars, SpaceX rockets, worked with NASA, all kinds of projects. Some of the best fun we've had are working with the film and recording industry in LA, Skywalker Studios, that kind of group. So you can find our materials and some of our projects on the Isolate It website. And then Persnickety Books is near and dear to my heart. Local bookstore. If you find yourself in North Carolina, come on by. We get lots of folks who are on their own tour of bookstores across the country, and they come on by. But we enjoy the space we've created. You can follow us on social media, and and then Ian Baltutis Facebook has been my page. I used to use the hashtag Millennial Mayor because I was the youngest mayor in our city's history when I got elected at age 30, and we had a lot of fun learning what local government was and what it could be, and pushing the envelope there. So encourage folks to check that out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ian. I really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.